The White Porch Conversations.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to White Porch Conversations. We are here on the White Porch with someone who's not really a guest at all, but it's just, she told her story with us a few years ago, and it's just too good not to tell again. And there are probably so many people, new families. That was like 5 years ago, I think. Four years ago, maybe.
4 years ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago. But I'm here with, I was just saying earlier to her, I still call her Miss Yarborough because she was my biology teacher. Chemistry. I had you for chemistry, I think. I think I had Mr. McKinney for biology. You were chemistry for me. And I was in her, I think it was her second year of teaching at Lincoln County. I think I had her in 99. She said she started in 90. We broke her in. We broke her in, that's for sure. But this is Heather Yarborough, and she comes to us via McCormick, via Elberton,
capital of the world.
That's right. And we tell everybody she's the mayor of Ricetown.
Oh, yeah. Right.
We just told that. So if you've ever went up Highway 79 and crossed into Elbert County and you see that sign that says Ricetown, this is who they're talking about right here. But an unbelievable person and an unbelievable story. So thank you for hanging out with us a little while today.
Appreciate it.
And just to start, I just thought it would be fun if we went as far back as you want to go and just tell us a little bit about your personal faith journey.
Okay.
Kind of how you were raised, in church, out of church, all of that. And how that journey either was helped, hindered, anything like that.
Okay. And we'll keep it shorter because I think that when I gave my testimony the last time, I think it was about 9 hours of taping.
I think we had about almost 2 hours worth of film for that.
Yeah, you made fun of me about how much editing you had.
It was just too good, though, man. It was too good. Yeah, yours is the only one that I remember when we did yours. We actually used it for the whole service because there was so much I wasn't willing to cut out. So you actually did the whole service with your story that day. So
I was born and raised in Elberton, Georgia, granite capital of the world.
Absolutely.
Elberton, Georgia. And I grew up in the church, but not with both my parents taking me. My mom would take me or my granny would take me to church. And my dad was never in church, but even as a young kid, I always wanted my daddy to be in church, and even as really young, prayed for him to be in church. And but just kind of that's what we did. I just prayed, and my granny would continue to take me. And when I was in the 4th grade, my grandfather actually was shot and killed. He was murdered.
Oh, wow.
And that kind of changed the trajectory of how my dad began to live his life. He began to he became alcoholic, and it was really hard. And so I just really began to pray even harder, for at some point for him to come to the church. And so, went through high school and even into college, met my husband, Scott.
So y'all met in college?
No, we actually met working. I was a biology major, he was a biology major, and we were working at a limnological facility, a water quality place. I was working on the water quality side. He was the fisheries guy, and so we were kind of eyeing each other across.
Match made in heaven.
That's right, exactly. Right there on the lake, But so we met and got married, and then.
Now, at the time, was he a church person?
Yeah, he was raised. He was raised Pentecostal.
Oh, okay, all right. I didn't know that about him. Oh, man.
Yeah, in fact, the first time he ever took me to church with him, I'd been raised Methodist. So the first time he took me, my eyeballs were, like this big. It was like people running around the church hollering. And I was like, what have I got myself into? But,
and he was from not Abbeville,
Honeypath.
Honeypath.
Yeah, Honeypath, South Carolina.
Okay.
But we've been married 4 years, and had decided we wanted to start a family. And a few months had gone by, nothing was happening, but I was having some trouble with my ankle. I was having some pain, and I had been a cheerleader in high school and had injured my ankle just hundreds of times. But went to the doctor, and this went on for about 9 months, and finally they did a biopsy, and it came back that it was cancer. And it was a pediatric cancer, and I was 27 years old.
Wow.
And it was a cancer that typically happened to boys too, so it was just a really odd type of cancer. And so we went through a year, of just really hard chemo, being in the hospital. About 5 months into, the diagnosis, they said, really and truly, if you want to get rid of this tumor, we need to amputate your leg. And so that was a big, that was a hard thing to deal with. A lot of prayer that went into that. But decided to do that. And of course that did remove the tumor. And so came out on the other side, finished up my chemo. Things were great. And so we started pursuing, trying to have a child again. But unfortunately, the doctor said, all the chemo you've had, Heather, the likelihood you're ever going to have a child on your own is very, very, very slim. Yeah. So Scott and I just began to pray.
So like at this stage, like let's think about the cancer part of it.
Right.
Were you and Scott at that time, if you were to evaluate yourselves, were you already grounded in faith? And was that something that you just had to dig deeper into what you were grounded into? Or was that more of a catalyst moment of faith for you guys?
Yeah.
Like, how would you describe...
Yeah, I think that you hit the nail on the head the other week. It really struck a chord with me when you talked about the irritation makes you move.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit more than the irritation, obviously.
Yes, yeah.
But that was a big irritation.
So it was one of those movement moments where it was like, this is an irritation, and we're gonna pursue God like we've never pursued God right now.
Absolutely. That irritation really caused us to move. And it wasn't that we weren't, we were, doing church here and there, and we were looking for a church.
Yeah.
But it wasn't solid. But that irritation it caused us to move and dig really deep. And so we, just began to pray. I mean, like I have never prayed in my life. And it's so cool because Paige Reed came up to me probably a week before I even found out that I was pregnant. And she said, your prayers are about to get answered.
Yeah, you've told me that.
And
that is amazing.
I just love that. And then literally a week later, I found out I was pregnant with Ellie Ray. And I mean, what a blessing that was. And I mean, I was shocked. I was just... oh my gosh. And I remember taking the little stick in to show Scott, and he was just like, oh, I knew that. I knew it was going to happen. I'm like, I wish you'd have told me that,
Yeah, because you guys had been told that this was not going to happen.
And this was 7 years later.
Wow.
So there was
a 7 year gap
yes.
between those prayers starting and when it actually came to pass.
Yeah, 7 years. So,
and everything that I've heard about you and Scott, you never quit praying. I mean, there were some frustrating moments,
right?
But it was like, no, we're going to keep believing for this. We're not going to let this desire, we're not just going to let it pass from our life. Like some people have just said, the old saying, hope deferred makes the heart sick. It's like, I would rather not have, the hope and just let this go. That would be easier than just being disappointed.
Right. I'll tell you honestly, what happened was, you praying for 7 years, and that's a long time to pray for something and nothing's happening. I was beginning to get frustrated at times, but I'm going to tell you what the turning point was, is I surrendered.
Come on.
I surrendered to God's will. I laid down my will, what I wanted, and I laid it down and I said, God, if it's your will for us to have a child, then we will have a child. And if it's not your will, I'm just going to pray that you're going to give me peace about that. Yeah. And I never had peace about not having a child. Yeah. So, but that's truly the turning point, is when I literally one night went down to the altar at church and I laid it down and I said, it's up to you. Whatever you want, God. If if we're not going to have a child, then Scott and I are fixing to travel all over the place. We're going to have a good time.
That's right, yeah.
But then very shortly after, I'm not kidding, very shortly after I surrendered that, truly and totally surrendered it, I found out I was pregnant. So.
Well, one of the things I'd always wondered that I don't think I've ever asked you is, when it came to the idea of God performing a miracle, like, was that something that you were, I'm trying to think of the way to ask this, is that something that you were already, like, you had already come to grips in your mind that this is a miracle working God, or was that something for you like that was really outside of the box? The idea of saying, because there are a lot of people that, man, if you tell somebody that God will forgive them of their sins, they're like, oh yeah, I know He does that. But then when you start talking about the doctors are saying this, and some people, if you say, man, if you'll pray about this, God can do this, they go, that's so far outside of their understanding of who God is. But then there are other people who you say that to, and they're like, oh yeah, God can do miracles. So I was always like, I didn't know how you and Scott, or maybe you can only answer this for yourself, because maybe it wasn't a conversation you ever had.
Right.
Was this a really outside of the box thing for you, or did it come very naturally for you to just say, I just know God can do this?
I had faith for sure, but I think growing up in the church that I grew up, there was not a lot of talk of miracles.
Yeah.
You know, now Scott's church, the Pentecostal, it was all about the miracles, you know. And so I think he had more of a background in that. I didn't as much. But I definitely had faith, and I knew, you know, God can do whatever he wants to do.
Yeah.
You know, and I just tried to, like I said, just surrender and said, whatever your will is. And I think maybe that was why I was surprised, because maybe I wasn't expecting a miracle.
And that's always been something that I've always been very amazed by, are people who, like you're talking about with Scott, people who weren't raised like me,
right?
Where that was just common knowledge, and it was common discussion of, man, God can do a miracle in this. You know, if somebody got sick, all of my life, all I can ever remember is, well, we're going to pray for them because God can heal them. But then there are so many people who don't have that background, but yet it's amazing how there's something inside of all of us that just, it's kind of like what you're saying. There's just something inside of all of us that just says, but God can do this.
Right.
Like I may not have ever been taught this.
Right.
It may not be common conversation for me. And I do know enough about where you and Scott were at the time to know that you were around some great people as well. You know, you just mentioned Neil and Paige, and, you know, y'all were close with Dr. Griffin, and y'all were close with Chuck and Lee. And I mean, there are a lot of people around you, I know, that were believing with you. But it is amazing to think about someone who would go, you know what, my whole life, I don't know that, like, the idea of God doing a miracle in my life was anything I'd ever thought of until that moment. But when that moment happened for me, there was just something inside of me that knew, hey, God can do this.
Oh, yeah. And then once, you know, we found out, you know, I was pregnant, obviously, I mean, I was like, yeah, he can. That was a believer for sure. He can
that
do
will give you
miracles.
a little puff of faith there.
Absolutely. And, of course, I had a praying mother-in-law, you know, praying mom, praying grandparents. You know, and my mother-in-law especially. I mean, she's got. We always said she's got the direct connection, buddy.
Oh yeah, I love that line with people. She's got that direct connection.
She does.
Her prayers are heard.
Exactly, and that's what we always said. You know, she was praying, you know, for a child, and so we know what happened. It really was just like that. You know, miracles really do happen. You know, and some people say, well, that's just a coincidence, and I just don't believe that. I mean, it's a true, you know, Ellie Ray is a true miracle.
For sure.
And then the miracle that came after that was that my dad started coming to church. And he started coming to church not because he was trying to get closer to God, but because he wanted to see Ellie Ray.
So she's sitting over here, if you guys don't know, and like literally before we started, she said, now y'all can't talk about me.
Sorry, baby.
And I'm like, no, you are such a centerpiece at the hand of God in this family. We can't, because it is so much bigger. It goes to the healing from the cancer that you found. That, I mean, you went into great detail about that in your testimony before, because there's a lot, a lot to that story. It's not like, oh, they cut my leg off and it was over. It was like, no, there were a lot of things the doctor, and if I remember correctly, was it because of Ellie Ray or because of something with the cancer that one of the doctors also kind of just said, you know, something about God had to do this.
Yeah, that was like later on.
Okay,
after
that was after.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I won't get ahead.
That's
so,
okay,
but then, like you say, then it goes from that into, you know, having Ellie Ray, and then your dad and that prayer for your dad, and how God worked so much through such frustrating times, as you would say. I mean, it's very frustrating. But God did one thing, and then it led to desire of your heart, and it led to a desire of your heart, and it's just so cool to hear how God laid it out.
I know. And so my dad started coming week after week after week, again, just to see Ellie Ray, But slowly I started seeing him transform, and it was such a beautiful, it makes me want to cry when I think about it.
Oh yeah, I can see
such
you tearing
a beautiful
up. That's okay.
thing. I mean, it was beautiful to see that. And even today, I mean, it's hilarious to be around him, because he carries his Bible with him everywhere he goes. When he's driving and he's stopping at a red light, he pulls the Bible out and starts reading it. And he fusses at me. He's like, Heather, you need to forgive that person. So, you know, and I'm like, Daddy, I've been a Christian longer than you have. And you telling me to forgive, you know, but it's great. And it is such an answered prayer. It was, I mean, years. You know, I think I prayed long for Ellie Ray. I mean, I prayed since I was 5 years old for my daddy. until I was 35. So that's 30 years of praying for him.
Wow.
But God can do that. And, we just can't give up.
And it goes to show you how like the timing of God really can be perfect, because I'm sitting here processing in my mind. I'm going, let's say that you had gotten him to go to church earlier.
That's right.
And then his father is shot and killed, and then his daughter is given a terrible situation of cancer, and then is told she'll never have a baby.
Right.
And you start building those things up, and something that could have easily pushed him away, but instead what seemed like God distancing himself, or your father, not God, but your father distancing himself from God, was actually God setting something up to say, I'm going to use something to draw you in, rather than let everything push you away.
That's right.
And his timing just shows perfection in your story.
I know.
How if you will surrender it to him,
That's
he will
right.
do it in his timing, and it will be perfect, because it will get everybody where they need to be.
That's
at the
right.
right place at the right time.
It is. It's beautiful. It really is when you look back on it. It's hard. It's hard being in the situation
For sure.
and processing it at that time. But when you can look back and have that 20/20 vision, looking back, it's like, wow, that was so cool how he just orchestrated that all and put it all, in place where it was supposed to go. So it was just a beautiful, beautiful thing. So the next part of the story, if I can just kind of move from there. So my dad was in church, transformed his life, just an answered prayer. So 10 years after the first diagnosis, I started having some issues. I thought I had pneumonia, actually. It was kind of during flu season, and I started coughing. And believe it or not, I was at Paige and Neil's house for like a New Year's Eve gathering. And I went into the bathroom and I was coughing, and I leaned over and I started coughing up blood. And I said, oh, what is this? And, went to the doctor, and they saw that I had cancer in my lungs. And it was the same kind of cancer that had then, spread 10 years later. I mean, it was just almost unheard of for that to happen. And at that point, we did all the scans and whatnot, and the doctor, I remember he came in, and it was even on my birthday, and he came in and he said, Heather and Scott, I just need to let you know, you need to go home and get your affairs in order, because you got about 6 months to live. And at this point, Ellie Ray was like 18 months old. And I remember just falling on my face and just crying out to God and just saying, like, how can you do this?
It's the story I'm thinking of in my mind is the story we read Sunday of the woman, the Shunammite woman, and and how she had been given these promises.
Yep.
The miracle happened, and then all of a sudden, in the middle of that miracle, it's like, well, wait a minute now. This miracle wasn't given to me so that it could all collapse like this.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what I said. Hey, now, I just can't believe that you are a God that would give me this and grant me the desire of my heart and then take it away.
We should have used this on Sunday.
Sorry.
We should have used this on Sunday.
Rewind.
No, this is like an incredible testimony to exactly what we talked about Sunday.
Yeah, it is.
It's like, so you return to sender, you go back to God, and you're like, God, you did this. So don't take it from me. This is something that you've provided.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And it was so crazy because, like I said, we began to pray again. We just began to dig in and pray, and it was so crazy because I ran across the Jeremiah scripture, for I know the plans I have for you, and I kept seeing it everywhere I went, and it was in a dentist office, and somebody sent it to me, and I opened my Bible one day in there. It was just like everywhere I turned, that verse was jumping out at me, and I knew it was God saying, it's okay, I got you. I got good stuff for you. Don't give up. Don't believe what that doctor's saying, which was crazy because that doctor was an unbeliever.
Right, and that's what that was part of the story that I remembered. Yeah,
yes.
That he was an unbeliever.
Yes, and so it's like God saying, "I'm gonna show him what a miracle is."
Yeah.
And it was so cool, to see that happen. And I started searching out other methods. He wanted me to take this super toxic chemo, and I did one round of it, and it literally just about killed me. And I started seeking out new treatments. Found a new doctor that came in who's, believe it or not, her name was Dr. Lord. Of all the names, it was so cool, so cool. But
yeah.
Dr. Lord came in, and she and I just kind of connected, and she found a treatment, and we started working on it. And about 3 treatments in, they started drastic reducing of the tumors. And the doctor that told me, that to go home and get my affairs in order, he came in that day, I remember, and he said, we're blown away. He said, we just can't believe what's happened in this office. And at that point I said, well, I can.
Yeah.
You know, I've
Yeah.
seen
Seen him do it
several miracles
before.
at this point.
Yeah.
You know, so here's miracle number 3 right here. You know, got Ellie Ray, my daddy's in church, you know, and now here's miracle number 3 that I am
trifecta.
going to survive that, you
Yeah.
know. So it was great, and I did, you know, I made it through that. The cancer did come back 2 additional times even after that. The last time Ellie Ray was 6 years old, and there was a little spot in my spine,
Yeah.
and we
I
were
think
laying.
that was right when we moved back. That was
Yes,
really close because I remember
was.
when you had that. Yeah.
We were laying in bed one night, and she and I were just talking again. 6 years old, and I remember she just said, "Mama, where is that spot?" And I showed her, and she put her hand on my back, and
Come on.
she prayed the most powerful prayer I have ever heard a child pray in my life. Well, an
Yes.
adult even. I mean,
Man.
she said, I claim in the name of Jesus
Come on.
that my mama be healed
Wow.
from this cancer. And I mean, I felt something. I felt different, you know, when
Yeah.
she prayed that. And so when she got done praying, we were laying in the bed, and she said, "Mama, can I tell you something?" And I said, "Sure, baby." And she said, "God spoke to me tonight." And I said, "Well, he did." And I said, "What did he say?" And she said, "Well, he told me to tell you," which I thought was great, because it was like God couldn't speak to me, you know.
Yeah.
God told me to tell you that you don't ever have to worry about cancer again, that it's gone. And I said,
on.
"Hallelujah, praise the Lord." I'm
What
claiming that.
story.
I'm claiming it.
Yeah.
She said, "And also, Mama," she said, "I just want to tell you that when I was praying over you, I looked up and I saw an angel standing behind you, and that angel was touching you and healing you." And I mean, I was blown away by that.
I
mean,
can't imagine.
completely blown
I
away
cannot
by
imagine.
that. And she even till this day can describe to you what that angel looked like. She still remembers it.
What?
It is.
How we gonna not
phenomenal.
talk about you, Ellie Ray? Listen to this stuff. This is the stuff that movies and books are written about, girl. I mean, this
My
is too
miracle.
amazing. This
My
is
miracle,
too
baby.
amazing. You are the miracle that brought the miracle. How cool is that? You are the
Exactly.
miracle that brought the miracle. That's a sermon. We're going to write a new sermon called "The Miracle That Brings the
I
Miracle."
love that. I
Because
love
sometimes he'll do one miracle and we think that's great, but we didn't know that miracle's just setting up for an even better miracle.
That's right, exactly.
come on.
I know. And then it's right. I mean, it's been 6 years, I think, since the last time that I've ever
Wow.
dealt with cancer, and I truly believe it's gone.
Amen.
I do. I
That is
believe it.
unbelievable.
And so, of course, through these, I mean, 4 times, you know, battling cancer. I mean, each time our faith has just gotten stronger.
Oh,
and
that's
stronger and
right.
stronger,
Yeah, instead
you
of it
know.
chipping away at it,
Right.
it's like what was there's a movie or something that I watched where every time they would shoot something like a missile or something, I want to say it was an alien something, and every time they would shoot at the alien, it would actually consume what you shot at, and it would use it would make it stronger.
Right.
And how, you know, that's what the enemy doesn't know about a believer is,
That's
man, every
right.
time he tries to use something that he thinks will chip away at our faith, if we will allow it to do what
Right.
God wants it to
Right.
do, it builds us up. It
Yeah.
strengthens us.
And we have to allow that.
Yeah, and we have to
do.
allow it.
We
Yeah,
do.
it's difficult.
We
but
do. And I got, you know, at that point, I had a lot of people saying, you know, "Will you come give your testimony?" And they had done that earlier after the first, you know, time. And I just wasn't ready, I think,
Yeah.
I just wanted to move on with my life after the first time. But at this point, I've got my miracles. I mean, it's been an amazing journey. And I'm like, yes, I will tell anybody who will listen to
yeah,
me.
come on.
And so I had,
And on top of that, tell them, I mean, I don't know, is it open what you guys are going to be doing?
what do you mean?
Is it common knowledge about the TV shows?
Oh,
thing?
yeah, no, we can
So
talk about it.
I don't want to let anything out of the bag that hasn't been.
Yeah,
so
no, it's good.
I was like, I better ask her
good. No,
before.
you're
So
good.
tell them so
Yeah.
now God's opened up a door.
But you know, when I came to give my testimony to the ladies at Faith Community, and Tanya Airwood's mom was there, and she stood up and she said, "I just want to tell all of you ladies that one day Heather's testimony is going to be on TV, and she's going to be able to tell the whole world her story." And and of course I received it. I heard it, received it, but again, it's one of those things like, am I really on TV?
Come
really
on now.
on TV?
Yeah.
Come on, But we had an opportunity. In fact, my mother-in-law called me and said, "Heather, I saw I saw something on TV. There's a church up in Illinois that's giving away a trip to the Grand Canyon to a deserving family, and they're gonna put their story on TV. And so we submitted it the day of, when it was due. We sent a little video in, and got a call back and said that we had won that trip.
That's so cool.
And so we're gonna get.
We can talk about that, can't we, Ellie Ray? Because that's pretty exciting. Come on, got a trip out to the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, and so this church is going to, televise our story and televise our trip going down the Grand Canyon. And so it's just such a cool thing then to see that even coming to fruition.
Yeah, I even remember, and you may remember who this was about. I even remember when you told your story at our church, there was someone who was, and we don't have to call them out by name, but I don't know if you remember this. There was someone that day that was there that had either just been diagnosed or was worried about a sickness of some sort.
Yeah.
And I remember that day you praying for them, and whoever it was, God answered it. I can't even remember the exact story, but I'll never forget you praying for somebody. It was in the front left. If you're looking at the stage, and how God has just opened up the doors to use your faith to not just celebrate your own story, but to be used to bring that into other people.
Absolutely, and that's what I want to be used. I want to be open to be able to do that kind of thing, and I want to share, and I want to teach my child, to be open to the things that God is doing in your life, and be that light, to other people, because we live in a dark world, and if we're not the light, who is the light? We are the hands and the feet and the light. And so absolutely, any chance I can get. I had somebody the other day said, "Will you come and talk to our church?" Yes. When can I come?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Yes. I just want to.
The story needs to get out.
Yeah, I just want to tell. And
the Bible tells us we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. And I always tell people that the victory that you're trying to get from whatever it is that you're going through, it's never complete until the testimony part is done. You can claim the blood and you can see God move, but that testimony brings like a completion to that victory.
It really does. There is a piece to it, and there is an additional healing that comes with telling your testimony. And I keep telling Scott, you need to tell your side of it, because his side is very different than my side. His is it's a little darker side to it, but yet I think that healing can be brought to him, and even a more peace to him. If he would tell his side of it, but. Yeah, it's good stuff. It is. It's good. It's amazing what God can do. It really is. And I don't doubt anymore. I don't doubt. I don't doubt at all.
Come on.
That's right. I believe it.
Well,
when
that's
I hear
amazing.
God speak.
Wow. Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely.
Because I'm sure there are a lot of people that I know there are a lot of people who have been through the cancer battles and stuff like that your story touches, but it's so much bigger than that.
It is.
It's this idea of, like you said, these irritations that are constant in our life, and just allowing God the room in our life, and like you said, just surrendering it all to Him, and just saying, I trust you, I give it all to you, and being able to just walk through it. And I know that I'm sure you can do this. I'm sure you can look back and you can say, well, it wasn't always with grace. But for the most part, I can just see that you probably just can look back and you could just see that God gave you peace in these moments. And again, not that every moment was like that, but you saw a consistency in God showing up and helping and being a part of it. So that's just so awesome.
No doubt. It definitely comes. And you're right. There were days that were hard, and I think people saw an outward happy, person.
Like optimistic person, trying to make the best of a bad situation.
But there were plenty of days I was at home crying my eyes out and just on my hands and my knees and just crying out to God. Plenty of those days. But He definitely, gave us the grace and the peace to keep pursuing on, to keep pushing on. So I'm so incredibly grateful. Incredibly grateful.
Have you heard this story? Is this the first time you've gotten to hear it? I know anytime somebody gets to hear your story for the first time, it is just mind-blowing. So I know there are probably people that have heard it, and you're like me, it just never gets old. And then there are some of you that are like, I've never heard this. This is one of the greatest things I've ever heard. So thank you for sharing your testimony, your story, trying to just give a little bit of your faith away. Thank you, Ellie Ray.
Yes.
For your part in all of this, because you are a major player in this. You are awesome, and your whole family. We love you. We love Scott. She's around our community. She lives in McCormick now, so she's on the the other side of the river, but man, always here to just like help, be an ear to somebody who may be battling something that you know that you've heard her talk about. She's definitely someone that I tell people this, that I trust people like Miss Yarborough with my life. So like if I were to suggest to you of different people that you can go to, and not only will they say, oh, I'll pray for you, but they really will believe with you because they know what God can do. She's one of those people that I'll tell you, man, reach out to her, let her know what she can do and how her story has touched you. And again, if you're another church and you got a women's group or a Sunday, I'd let her preach any Sunday, absolutely. So if you're out there and you're like, man, we need to have her at our church to come share this story, reach out to her.
Please.
She wants to tell this, and then I just stand amazed at what God has done through your life. It's so cool to see it. So amazing. So, and I'm just excited I get to be a part of your life now. And Ellie Ray and Scott, and how we have become friends, and it's weird when you start telling people these were my teachers, and now they're people that I just consider dear friends. But you are a dear friend. Your family is like family. We love you guys so much.
I love y'all too.
So thank you for sharing.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. We hope you guys enjoyed this story, this conversation on the White Porch, and let us know. You can comment, tag her in the comment if you don't know how to get in touch with her. Just let her know, hey, pray for this, or thank you, encourage her in her story, whatever you can do. But thank you guys for watching, and then we hope you have a great weekend this weekend, and we will see you next week on White Porch Conversations. So y'all have a great day.
The White Porch Conversations.